What's up, everyone? Happy Saturday. I have an amazing guest today. I'm Shelbie Morgan, your host of the Hustle, Budget, and Glow podcast. I'm so excited to have my first guest of 2025, Chris Greene. We're going to go ahead and get things started. Type in the chat, put your name, put where you're from. We're going to make this super engaging. We're going to make this super fun. We're going to make this super exciting. We're going to hustle. We're going to grind. We're going to get to know Chris. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about hustling, habits. He is the king of habit forming. We're just gonna have a really good time today. So sit back, relax, get your coffee, your tea, your water. I have all three. I have my tea, okay. I have my coffee and I have my water. I won't pull that. And I have a snack that I'm gonna eat later. Chris has his water, so we are ready to go. Again, I'm your host, Shelbie Morgan. I'm from Houston, Texas, holding it down in Austin, Texas, where I reside. And this is the Hustle, Budget, and Glow podcast. Let's go. I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I'm going to kick it off and we're going to have some fun and we're going to get to know Chris today. Put any questions you have in the chat. Like I said, we're going to make it engaging. Ask questions, put how you feel, put a smiley face, a sad face. It doesn't matter. Have a good time with it and let's get it happening. Let's get it going. Yes. What's up, everybody? All right. So Chris, let the people know where is home for you and where do you currently reside?
Yes. Well, I would say here is home now, but I grew up in Irvine, California, in between Los Angeles and San Diego, for those of you who don't know. And I now live in Toronto, Canada. So a little bit of a switch from West to East Coast. And it's quite a bit colder here, but I'm loving it. I met my partner out here and I've been here for about 4 years.
Okay. What made you make the switch to Toronto?
I came out here about 6 years ago on a whim. I met someone, wanted to kind of do some business stuff together. That within days fell flat on his face, but it was okay because by that time I met my now partner. And so I just stayed here for 6 months, which is a pretty cool US Canada thing we have. And then we did long distance for a bit. And I was like, you know what? I love you. I'll come out here for you.
Oh,
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When things fall flat, they got to fall flat for them to rise up. So
that's right.
and it was part of your journey. So, I
hmm
mean, you live in the city that Drake is from, so that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't
That
know.
is.
See him? I don't know if he's your next.
Well, he comes over on Tuesdays, but it's
Okay.
casual.
Y'all
Yeah,
do dinner on Tuesday.
yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's the day that he would be free.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. No, yeah, definitely got to get out to Toronto. My plan is to come to Toronto in June for the Kendrick Lamar concert. That is
Love it.
so we'll have to connect in real life.
100%.
Definitely want to be you and your partner over dinner and drinks and recommend the best coffee shops in Toronto because
We've got plenty.
I need to
Yeah,
I have some good ones. And I
I
heard it's
love it.
not cold, so I'm hoping
Did you
it's
say December is not cold?
summer, like
Oh,
June.
oh, summer. Okay, yeah. I was like, I don't know who told you.
Oh yeah, December.
No, June is beautiful. Yeah, we're good.
That's what I heard. And I also heard there are a lot of like concerts and festivals and things of that nature. So I'll make sure that I keep all that in mind and I'll let
Yes,
you know in advance. But no, okay, Toronto, California. I mean, both are home at this point.
that's
So,
right.
uh,
100%.
okay, so are you an official citizen in Canada?
I have my permanent residency. So
Oh,
I think citizenship is the next step, but that's
okay.
a couple years from now.
Okay, well, it's
Yeah, we're on our way.
on our way. Okay. So, Chris, tell everybody what is your hustle? We want to know. The people want to know. Give us your backstory.
Yes, my hustle is called Hack That Habit. I am what I refer to myself as a habit teammate. So think habit coach or life coach, but I prefer the term teammate because, to be honest, I'm still on the path myself. And I don't think that I'm ever going to be off this personal development, self-improvement type path. My journey, I would say, began towards the end of college, where I was just like, I want to get out of here. I can't do this structured learning stuff. My brain was like a squirrel. I wanted to learn everything, but for 10 minutes, and then I was on to something else. And so I changed my major 15 times and ended up having to just stick with what ended up being international relations so I could graduate on time. So I
Right.
stuck that out. And then came the question of like, do I want to do the 9 to 5 and stay in a structured life, or do I want to do my own thing? And I definitely opted for my own thing. And so I did some freelance writing and just kind of any odds and end thing that I could do to make a buck, and took the entrepreneurial route. Um, and with that, I think was the first confrontation with the blank slate of life, right? Going from being raised in schools and all that to, hey, I'm not doing the 9 to 5. So I have this completely open day. What am I doing with this? And going from that intention of like, I want to do this thing and that thing and this, relying on my willpower day in and day out, worked for some days and maybe even some weeks, but then fell flat a lot of the time. So I was like, why is it so hard to do what we set out to? And that just entered me in this beautiful rabbit hole of behavior and how we make change and all of these different things in psych and neuroscience and all of that good stuff. And from that kind of deep introspective work and just learning about how we operate as humans, habits just kept coming up over and over and over. And they are the unlock to, in my opinion, to an amazing life. Because if you can master your habits, it's the ultimate meta skill. It is going from that intention to behavior to habit to identity ultimately. And that's what I help people do. And that's what I love ongoingly doing with myself.
So that was your aha moment. You needing habits was your aha moment.
100%. And like, I should say, me intentionally starting to meditate after having failed for years and years and years, and then doing it within the first month, 25 out of 30 days, that strategy I used, I was like, oh my gosh, this can help a ton of people. My new mission is to spread this with others because making change is hard. And if you can do it in a sustainable fashion, that's what we want.
Yeah, I think it's all about sustainability, right? Because I feel like 9 to 5 is so structured, but like even people that have a 9 to 5 and have like entrepreneurship outside of that, they're working and still
Mm-hmm.
doing side hustle. You have to still find a routine around that. Like that's super important
100%.
because if not, you'll fail that bug. You'll fail at your 9 to 5, which you clearly everybody
Mm-hmm.
needs to pay their bills, and then your
Right.
entrepreneurship endeavor, it'll be like out of whack, right? So you have to figure out what are my habits for this 9 to 5 that I have to
Mm-hmm.
do in order to be
Mm-hmm.
successful to pay my bills. Maybe this isn't my passion. My name is on the door. I don't own it. But in order for
Right.
me to be able to sustain myself and like do my side hustle, like I gotta
Right.
have like the right habits because people can have the wrong habits, right? Um,
100%. Yeah.
so it also be a thing. So as far as like being an entrepreneur and being your own boss, like informing these habits, like what has been the best thing about doing your own thing?
Mm, I would say the best thing about almost taking as much control as I can without, like reality with a capital R always has the control and you only have so much. But I think taking as much of that and bringing it into the scope of what I can do and really control my behavior, I think that to me is that's my freedom. Is like I look at freedom as the ability to choose your obligation. And with not having a 9 to 5 or even just the time outside your 9 to 5, it's like that free time is really your ability to choose what am I going to put my energy toward, right? And if you make these things non-negotiable that you really care about, obviously if you don't care about them, why make them non-negotiable? But if they're important to you, then it's being able to establish boundaries for yourself and not force yourself, but exercise control when it matters in those completely could be chaotic moments. But if you have that structure, then that to me is the most fulfilling thing. Is like I've done what I set out to today.
Right. And you like stay 10 toes down on your non-negotiables. And you talked about energy. And energy can
Hmm.
it can be up or down depending on the day. So
Yeah.
you are a habit guru. So whether it's
Hmm.
yourself or the people that you help, how do you input energy into your daily life to stay on top of things? And how do you try to help people coordinate energy around their life to be focused? Because sometimes
Hmm.
you don't have the energy to give. Sometimes you
Yeah.
have negative energy. And I think energy is great, right? You want people around you that have good energy. You want to give good energy, but that is not always the case. So how can
Hmm.
you do that and still like stay on top of your habits? Like what would be like your go-to for that as far as energy is concerned?
I would say for me, it starts with a frame. And this is one of the ones that really kicked it off for me, where looking at our willpower as kind of this limited resource. And there's a beautiful book called Willpower by Roy F. Baumeister. And basically, it's like, hey, there's two schools of thought, but you can look at willpower as a limiting resource or it's unlimited. But either way, I think we all have energy limitations. But when you look at action as the thing that we want to accomplish, the right action, it takes some energy. But if you take the habit first approach and make a cue and make the actual action small enough to start and do consistently, and you reinforce the process, which is kind of the basics of the habit loop. If you do that, then it becomes easier and easier and easier. That same action, running 3 miles might be physically just as hard, but mentally it's a lot easier once you've made it a habit. So that to me, I'm like, oh, that's an investment, right? So I think that frame of it's not always going to be this hard if I go about it in this deliberate, structured way. It's going to be easier and easier. Eventually, scientists call automaticity. It's just, hey, this is an automatic thing that I do now. So if you see these difficult to do behaviors as investments, and you are very diligent in the beginning in making sure you set up your context correctly and make the plan that's attainable and sustainable, all that stuff, and you go about it in that way, it just becomes this massive payoff period once that habit's gained. And that, I think, frees up the very easy and typical approach that most of us take is like, I want to do 20 things at once. It's like,
Right.
well, no, investment wise, just focus on your spare bandwidth right now. Focus on this one thing, make that become habitual. Once you do that, you've earned the right to then go to that next sector of your life. And starting and focusing on one thing has been a huge shift for me and the people I work with, because we all want to do 100 things, right? It's like that is, I think, just ingrained in us. So when we can focus on one, make it habitual, make it sustainable, move to the next, it just simplifies a lot of what could be very difficult.
I agree. 100. Three things you said, right? Frame, right? Super
Mm-hmm.
important. Investment, right? Super important. And just those small steps. So like putting energy in this frame, right? A frame is empty until you fill it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until you put that picture in it. In
Mm-hmm.
order for that to happen, you got to go out and take the photos, right? And so you're not going to get the perfect photo until, like you said, you do the mini steps, you do the baby steps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
An investment. So those non-negotiables for that extra time that you have outside of that 9 to 5, you have to make sure you're so locked in on those, right? Like you can't let A, B,
Mm-hmm.
C, D, which are your non-negotiables, come and interrupt what you're trying to do. To put in
Mm-hmm.
that frame that you can hang up and say, okay, I completed this. But it is
Mm-hmm.
that investment piece, right? And I think the whole point of being a hustler, being an entrepreneur, is you're investing in yourself and you're investing in other people that you don't know yet, and also people that you care about. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to form those habits. And so investment is like, I feel like the key word. Mind you, this is a financial wellness and mental wellness
Yeah,
podcast.
I know. That's why I thought I had to bring it up.
You brought it up. People have to invest in them and themselves, right? And then
Right.
people have to also divest in certain things and certain people
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that are not helping them get to that frame energy,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
Because that's a huge part, right? Because you have to unlearn bad habits, which is
Mm-hmm.
that a company that's about to, I don't know, go down, merge, whatever the case may be, or just close shop altogether. They have to divest their assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to do the same thing as an individual and as a person, because those bad investments, those stocks, those ETFs, whatever you're looking at, it might not be making you the right money, whether it's personal money or whether it's financial money. You
Mm-hmm.
have to really think about that as an individual. So I love that you put it in that frame network. So everybody,
Yeah.
pay attention to what Chris said. Chris said, put your energy in a frame. Anything that doesn't fit within that frame is not the kind of energy you need. Anything that is not an investment for your future self or the things you're trying to accomplish, that one big goal, you got to let that go. You got to let them go. You got to keep it moving, because that's what entrepreneurs do. They adjust, they adapt, they have that energy frame mindset. And I think that's just something I like that you said, like just putting energy
Mm-hmm.
not in a box, but in a frame. A frame can come in different shapes. You can take the
Right.
picture in and out the frame, you can change it, you can change and adapt as an entrepreneur, but you got to have that mindset, you know?
And I think there's one more point I want to get to is also when we're making changes and first starting out, it's the hardest it will ever be, right? And it's super easy to be hard on yourself, especially if you're ambitious. It's very difficult to not be hard on yourself. So reframing to, hey, my new challenge is having that self-compassion, realizing, hey, it is really hard. This is my non-negotiable. I'm still going to do it, but it's looking at, if my energy is low right now, how do I redefine in this moment? How do I redefine success so that it is attainable? If doing something for 30 minutes is your typical, but you feel not good, then doing 10 minutes might be your new success. And I think being able to take a step back and go, you know what, right now it's about getting the rep. It's about making sure I'm making that association of this behavior with this context at this time. And as hard as it is, it doesn't matter. I'm going to win in this moment. Even if that makes a small step, it's still a step forward instead of nothing. Right. So I think that is, once people get that, you become much more unstoppable than if you feel like you have to get the full rep every single time. Because inevitably you get one or two or three, you grit your way through, and then you fall flat, you stop, and there's no consistency. So it's
Yeah.
really focusing on getting the rep as small as it needs to be for that moment. And that comes with that awareness of your energy.
Getting the rep for the moment. I love that. So like there's a fitness podcast I listen to, right? And it's also kind of motivational. And the guy on the
Mm-hmm.
podcast, he said, you're always supposed to lift the heaviest weight, okay, at the end, right? That's super important.
Mm,
Start light, right? It's
mm-hmm.
just like you said, at the end of the day, like it's about, doesn't matter if you do one, two, or three, but make sure you're like going the hardest that you can
Increasing, right?
to the very end. Like you don't start with the 125-pound weight. You might start with the 70, but you want to max out. You want to go as hard as you can by the end of the workout. You always do the hardest part at the end when it comes to repetition. Because typically, usually, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're successful, you're gonna have a lot of things that are going on, like small wins. But the big goal, the golden ticket that you get at the end is gonna come from that final hard rep. So it doesn't matter if it's for 10 minutes, if it's for 30 minutes, 10 years, or 30 years. It's about making sure your final push, your last push, your last rep gets you over the finish line. So you got to go hardest at your end. You might have to change it, like you said, 5, 10, 30 minutes. It doesn't matter, whatever it looks like for you in that moment. But the idea is to win, right? Whatever
And
that
you can only win by going, and like you have to show up, right? It's
you have to show up. And
yeah.
I think that's so for habits, right? Like in everyday life, like if you don't show up, like if you want to go to the gym every day, fine. But like if you don't actually show up for yourself, you could be at the gym. But if you aren't
Right,
showing up for
right.
yourself while you're actually there, you're not going to be successful. And I know I told you I just finished 25 hard. I am
That's right.
and that feels like everybody should do it. But there were a lot of days that I did not want to show up for myself. Doing 2 workouts for 45 minutes a day was crazy, but I knew the results would be really good because I've seen other people do it, people I didn't know, right? So sometimes your habits might look like somebody's success at the end of your finish line, right? Not that you're them or you're on their same path, but sometimes it just looks that way.
Right. In my opinion, if you can look at someone else for inspiration, do it. Like ideally, it always comes from within, but let's be real, that's not always going to be something we can rely on. So if in a healthy way you can look at someone else and go, I want to do that, amazing. There should be never a shortage of inspiration. If you can find it, that's amazing.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to make your own inspiration, right? Sometimes
100%.
it has to be you. Sometimes your habit has to be to motivate yourself.
Yeah.
Literally. I mean, sometimes that's the only way you can win sometimes. Okay, so I have a question for you. So I think you told me about success and what that looks like for you. And so what would you say your overall like mission is for you for 2025? Because missions and visions for companies, they change, right? It changes based on the company, the economy, what your goals are. What is your mission for 2025 and your vision for 2025? And it can be by quarter, it doesn't matter. Like, and how do
Yeah.
you define what a mission is? Because sometimes people they don't know what that looks like for them. Like, do you use habits to
hmm
your mission? And it's a lot of questions in one, but the real
Uh,
question is your mission and vision for you, for Chris Greene, for your brand, and for yourself.
yeah. I think I kind of have this dual view of I have this underlying big semi-ambiguous mission, which is broadly I want to help people gain better habits. That's all it needs to be for me. I don't need further clarity than that. And then the kind of more micro one, which I took this from some other places, but it doesn't matter. But it's really, really small and attainable. I just want to help one single person gain better habits this year. That's it. And especially because the more I've done this, the more people start to refer other people. So if I can, it's like looking at your year into the day. It's like, if I can succeed today, if I can succeed with this moment, with this person, then that's going to spread. And ultimately, that's all I can hope to do is affect change in one person or help them affect change in themselves. And then that spreads and has this beautiful ripple effect. So I try not to psych myself out by like, oh, I want to help 10,000 people gain better habits. It's like, no, attainable, small. And then once you've met that goal, it's way easier to continue. And it's all extra credit. It's all amazing from there. So I like to keep it small for myself.
I love how you said it's all extra credit. I mean,
hmm
I loved extra credit in school. Like I loved it. I got money for my report cards and my progress reports. So the more points I
Nice.
get, the more money my dad would give me for my report card. So if there was extra, I don't care if I hated the idea of the project. Give me the
hmm
extra credit, sign me up for it. And I'm thinking I've been a financial person my whole life because I was calculating like I need to get, and it had to be like A plus, A minus. Like you got different
hmm
money, different ones. So I didn't really want an A minus because I got less. I can't remember what the exact amount was, but I used to have a key to the mailbox. It was in the cul-de-sac, and I would race to get it, to get that, to see it. Okay.
That's so good.
I was okay with having a B on the progress report, but it had to be A by the time the report card came
Right.
out. But the extra credit, my mindset like was like, what else do I need to do to continue to win? And
hmm
like you said, it was just that it's that one person for you. And like you said, it's gonna spread, right? It's gonna keep
hmm
moving. People are gonna hear about it. I think the best salesmanship is still word of mouth. I don't care what anybody says.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you can be the best videographer, you can be the best social media guru. It doesn't matter. When somebody
Mm-hmm.
tells somebody else that you're great,
Yep.
that's better than any Google review,
Mm-hmm.
right? So your mission is to spread habit forming. You start with that one person, but other people are going to hear about it, right? It's like a telephone. People are going to keep
Right.
calling the next person, right? But that's because what you do resonates with that person, right? Like I think you're intentional with your clients, and I
Mm-hmm.
think intentionality spreads.
For sure. And I think for me, that is just the frame of the goal that works best with me. There, some clients I have, they like to have a little bit bigger of goals, just the frame that they look through, and that works better for them. So to me, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Find what works for you to frame it. If it's, I want to help 10 people this year, awesome, go do that in whatever it is. But I've just found for myself that it's like the sooner I can already have accomplished the thing and look at the rest as extra credit, that's what allows me to have that sustainability. So I'm completely indifferent into or agnostic into what approach you take to make your frame for your goals, but that is just what I found to work best for me.
Yeah, use the frame that works for you. Put that in
Right, exactly.
for you. Do the extra credit that's going to get you the points you want for that report card money,
Right,
right?
right.
No matter what kind of entrepreneur you are, no matter what kind of person you are, like if you just have an idea to hustle and to grind, like make it work for you, right? Like focus on that one thing and then everything else will spread. That intentionality
Mm-hmm.
will spread, that
Mm-hmm.
energy will spread, everything will go forward. And so I know you spoke about clients. So I want to talk a little bit about the financial side of things. So
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to clients, what do you think about habit forming in this current economy? Do you think people are less reactive to want to form habits based on the economy right now, or more pumped up to want to form good habits to be successful in this current economy? Because depending on how the world goes, depending on how the financial economy is,
Mm-hmm.
people's moods and their energy changes. It's up and down. So, how does habits and economy come into play? From your no right answer, obviously, I
Mm-hmm.
am
Right,
not
right, right.
not work for CNBC. I would love to. So, if y'all are listening to CNBC, call me up. I definitely want to come and do a podcast with you. But no, yeah, just
Yeah.
sip my
I,
coffee. Tell me what you think.
my guess is that everyone is going to respond differently to whatever the state actually is of the economy, et cetera, and to whatever information you're taking on that, your perception of that, and then how you deal with whether that's stress inducing or not is going to determine how you work with your habits as they relate to the economy. To me, I go, one, how can we just automate anything so we don't have to rely? Like our habits are a great automation tool of our behavior. But if you can go even further upstream and automate every paycheck, it automatically goes here. You have to do that thing once and then it happens for you. That's even better. That's even more reliable than our habits. So I'm like, whatever you can do to automate the goal that you have for yourself as it relates to the economy, like that's the approach I would take. I don't know how it's going to affect every single person.
Right.
All I can hope is that people are making small enough changes to their ultimate goal that they can be consistent with them.
I love it. So automating your personal finance goals, despite how the economy is. And I think that's super important, right? Like some of the things I've talked about on the podcast is making things visual, making your
Mm-hmm.
finances visual, because a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't know what their finances look like. You can't form good money habits or good mental wellness habits around money if you don't know what you're spending. A lot of people don't know how much they spend on
Yeah.
groceries. They don't know
Yeah.
what their bills are. I get it. Some people's bills are automated, correct? Like my utilities bill is automated, but I have
Mm-hmm.
an idea of the range of energy uses I use
Right.
each week, right? I
Right.
can't know everything, but if you don't automate your finances visually, if you don't know what you're spending, then you can't really think about the economy and what it's doing and how it's affecting you because you don't even know what you're doing with your own money.
To me, it's like bring it in this, I think is broader even than the economy. It's always, how can I bring the onus of control and locus of control within me? You can't, like, sure, we, with our vote or whatever, you can affect certain change out in the world and have your tiny effect. Cool. But realistically, the majority of the control is here. So it doesn't matter out there because I don't have too much control over it. So focus on what you can control, and
Right.
irrespective of the grander context or what's going on, it's like, this is what I need to do based on my circumstance. And then you go from there.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, bringing it back home, focusing on what you can do to be successful in your own financial
Mm-hmm.
world because I can't control what my neighbor is doing. I can't control what people are doing sitting on the financial board out in Washington, D.C. or in the
Right.
UK, anywhere else, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But despite the economy, if you can have a better mindset around money. First of all, it's mindset, right? You can't form a habit if you
Right.
don't have the mental wellness to go with it. So get your mind right first, right? Think about the habits you need to have a better mindset. Then go about that and think about, okay, what habits do I need to have now when it comes to my spending or when it comes to the income I'm bringing in? Maybe my habits should be focused on what side hustle can I do? Or maybe my habits should be focused on how can I be more successful at the job I have? Or maybe my
Mm-hmm.
habits should be what kind of habits do I need to get a better job than the one I have to
Mm-hmm.
elevate me to go do that side hustle, right? It could be different for
Right. That's a great point. To me, what that makes me think of is I personally tend to lean towards I'm not going to save more, I'm going to make more. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own approach, but I'm like, it's easier for me to form a habit of going toward than minimizing what is a limited resource. I'm like, making more is unlimited to me. So I'm just going more. So I don't have to spend I love thinking about these three economies of time, money, and energy. And it's like, there's this algebraic connection between them in a way. And the more that I can pay down my energy with money, amazing. Like I want to do that as much as I can, delegate, outsource, do all of those types of things, and then make more. And I don't know, there's something about that abundant mindset that I don't know is helpful
I
to
like
me.
that. I like that paying down to get more energy. So I love that. So that could be somebody doing curbside grocery pickup or grocery delivery or
100%.
prescription delivery, whatever it is. But like the idea of like always making more and saving more, I love that because the option to make more money is unlimited, right? There's
Right.
money out there. You can go and make more, but you technically can't save more. Even if your mindset was, I'm going to cut down on my subscriptions or I'm going to
Right.
stop going out to eat or I'm going to cook all my meals at
There's
home.
always going to be a ceiling. Yeah.
It's always going to be a ceiling because unless you break through that threshold of where you're at financially, you literally, you can never really save that much more, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
unless you're going
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
live off rice and beans and
Right.
sink
But
water.
like even then, you're still capped.
You're
It's like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you have the mindset of like, I can always have more and do better without burning yourself out and saying that what I have is not good enough. But I think people get confused. They
Mm-hmm.
think that people, oh, you want to make more, you want to be more successful. You're never satisfied. No, it's not that I'm never satisfied. I'm thankful for what I have, but I know what I can be. I know what I can accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
know that if I get the right habits, that I can be that version of myself. Right. Because I feel like people get so caught up in saying, oh, well, you're not happy. You're not appreciative. No, I am appreciative. I am thankful, but I know what I'm capable of. And I know that I
Mm-hmm.
can make more, do more, and be better. But I have to do A, B, C, and D to get there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, again, that energy frame, putting yourself into that. Like I said, you can change the picture in a frame whenever you want, but it's up to you what that picture needs to be.
For
Right.
sure. Love it.
Okay, so I want to ask you this. So when a client comes to you, let's just say I'm a new client. I'm
Mm-hmm.
client Shelby.
Mm-hmm.
What is the first thing you have me focus on?
Yeah. The first part of the course that I have them go through is called Start with Who. So think Simon Sinek's Start with Why. This is really start with who. It's like let's deeply introspect because I think people are very avoidant to do this because it's hard. It's the way I see it is our existential situation is like, holy moly, this is being alive is a lot. And if you don't actually pull back the curtain and look within and figure out who do I actually want to become in this life, you're not going to be going toward that person. Right. So I think the clearer you can become or figure out who you want to be, the easier it's going to be to get there. So it's this very simple framework of ZAB. Who do you want to become? The Z. Who are you right now? The A. And then B, what's your next step? Like, what's the behavioral difference between these two people? And then what's the most important one for me to focus on right now? So it's deep introspection and then guiding them to figure out what is that one thing I want to focus on. And then we get that next step nailed. And then we want to make that become an automatic habit.
So just having incremental steps, right? Focusing on your who, because who I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be when I
Mm-hmm.
finished high school in 2010 is not who I want to be in 2025. Like
Correct.
I'm still Shelby Morgan.
Yep.
Still have the gist of my personality. I'm still outgoing. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like
Mm-hmm.
meeting people and having a good time. But my expectations of other people, my expectations for myself have changed. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
figuring out who you want to be right now, right? I
Yes.
don't know who I want to
Yes.
be in 2030. I honestly don't.
Yep.
I can't tell you
Right.
who I want to be in 5 years. I hope I'm still as happy and as kind, like
Right.
overall, like big picture things. But who I want to be at my core in 5 years, I'm gonna figure that out as I go. Like I have an idea of who I want to be,
100%.
right? But I feel
Yep.
like I want to build on who I am now. right? So
I
just
couldn't
small
agree more.
steps, right? I think that that's super important. So is there a method when you're having people create these steps? Do you give them a digital journal? Do you have them do anything on their end? Are there like any engagement,
Yeah.
gamified? I like gaming, so any gamification
Yeah.
aspects?
I don't know if it's gamified per se, but I would say there are, I want to say, almost 400 questions that prompt introspection in some capacity that they go through. And I make it clear, like, you don't have to answer intentionally each of these, but pick the
Okay.
few that really stand out to you and go deep on them, right? Like, take your time and don't worry about not knowing, and giving yourself that space and that time to push past I've actually never confronted this because it's hard and scary. It's like, no, go a little deeper on those ones that resonate with you. And then from there, to get really practical, we go, hey, in your ideal world, what does your ideal day look like? And it's a realistic ideal. So it has to be a sustainable progress. You can't go for 28 hours in a 24-hour day. Like, you have to
Right.
be realistic. But what does that ideal day look like? And then let's work backwards. How much of that do you do right now? And then what's the difference? Like, what are the behavioral differences between that ideal and the current? And then let's work on one. Like, that's at its core, that's the simplest way for me to get a very tangible approach. So just ask all these questions. How do these make you think about your ideal, your current? What's the difference? Prioritize.
I think working backwards is so important. I don't think people do that enough. Like people don't work back. Like so,
Right.
corporate America at work, we have performance reviews. I hate performance reviews because I think I'm amazing, right? I think I'm the best person on the planet. But you have to do performance reviews to see. I don't think it's a negative thing. And it's depending on who's doing them. Emphasize on that.
For
Who's wrong
sure.
with reviews? Because some people are biased. But
Yeah.
in a realistic world, a performance review is to help you see where you came from and where you're going and what's next, right? But in order for you to do that, you have to work backwards. And
Mhm.
we're humans. We don't like hearing constructive criticism a lot of the time. Sometimes we take it too personally. But if you focus on like the real things that you could be doing better, I think that's the core of what working
Mhm.
backwards is. Like, okay, like you did a good job, but on A, B, and C, let's take a look back and see how you could do those things even more badass going into
Mhm.
the next year, the next 2 years, the next 3 years. So like working backwards is a great way. I think your own personal performance review,
Mhm.
you got to work backwards. You have
Mhm.
to, if you have super bad habits, let's just say you had bad habits 6 months ago, and now you're doing better. Now you're working out more. You quit smoking. You only drink twice a week.
Mhm.
You're still not there. So you did really, really good. But how can we continue to look back at that so you can do better next time? So I think
Yeah.
that's super key to being
Yeah.
successful.
The frame that I love for this is, like, so Z is the ideal, A is your current self, B is that next step. But in reality, that's kind of fake because we're always A, we're always our current self, right? We just kind of bring in our next step constantly. And Z is always a forever mirage, right? We're never going to become that ideal because with each change that we make, that mirage itself changes. So we're always this current self. It's just a matter of, are we going toward, directionally correct, toward that updating ideal?
Right. Always forward, right? Like always moving forward. Directionally ideal, I think is a good way to put it, right? Because
Mm,
directions pivot, things change, right? You
right.
might go north one day and south the next day. But overall ideation, like what does that look like for you when it comes to forming habit, right? I think that's what people should focus on because you said, what is your typical day? What does it look like, right? Everybody's day is going to look different. I'm not talking about a typical interview question where somebody says, walk me through your typical day as a marketing analyst. No, not like that. Like literally, like from the moment you wake up,
Hmm.
what are the motions? What are the habits you go through?
Hmm.
How can you be more successful? Because habits are habits, right? I'm gonna always wake up and brush my teeth and wash my face. That's never gonna change, right?
Right.
And you're not asking people to change simple things like that. You're asking people to look a little bit deeper.
Well, yes, and also, like, start wherever you want. If you don't wash your face right now, and that's something that, let's say a skin is an issue for someone and they want to start washing their face, but they just don't have the habit to build it up. It's like, okay, we can start there. These simple things. I'm working with someone right now on simply looking at their total finances every day for 5 minutes. Like, that's the thing that they identified as that's gonna have the most downstream effect for me. I want to habitualize that. I want to ingrain that in my body. And I'm like, awesome. This is a simple thing, but granted, everything has emotional baggage, right? So sometimes it's really hard. 5 minutes time, super simple. But when it comes to addressing that emotion, like, oh my gosh, gotta pay them off my credit card, like all that stuff, it is emotionally resistant, right? So we have to overcome that. So 5 minutes is still hard sometimes. But it just goes to show that that simple of a behavior can have a profound impact on the rest of your day, right?
Yeah, the rest of your year, rest of your life. And like, let's be honest,
Exactly.
like I might be a budget queen. I have my Excel spreadsheet and I look at my budget every week. I hate paying bills. A lot of financial podcast doesn't mean like I get such a high from paying my bills and swiping my card to pay.
Right.
Just paid my rent. I had so much fun spending that money yesterday. I really did not have a good time. Like I don't have to pay or I'll be living on the corner, but I can't say
Right.
something that makes me really happy. But you do have to look at it. Like I have to
Right.
do it, right? And I'm laughing because someone in the chat put flossing is still a habit I'm working on. It's not fun. Floss,
Right.
no, I can't. Oh my God, I love a floss. I mean, the after effect might feel refreshing, but going to get my floss picked, picking at my teeth, I mean, I can't say I'm having a good time. I'd rather watch trash reality TV.
Mhm.
But you have to do it or your teeth are going to fall on the ground. Okay,
Right.
that's really it.
Right.
Sometimes the habits that you have to form are not going to be enjoyable. I think that's what I want people to understand, like having here today. Some habits are not going to bring true bliss. Some habits have to be done for you to be a better version of yourself.
Mhm.
You got to floss. You got to look at your finances, right? You got to
Mhm.
go through your performance review with your boss who you half-ass don't like. Like these are things you got to wash your face or else your skin's going to fall off. Maybe not fall off,
Right.
pretty bad. So
No, it's gonna fall off. Okay, wash your face.
your face or your skin will be on the ground. Look at
Yeah.
your hands, you're going to be on the corner and floss your
Yeah.
teeth or your teeth will be on the floor. That's it, right? But we
Mhm.
got to work our way up into these habits. Okay, so I want to talk about marketing and social media for a
Mhm.
bit. Okay, so I know you told me when I first connected with you that you do not love social media. It's not your favorite thing in the world.
Yep.
But social media is an aspect of being an entrepreneur, being successful. Like I said, word of mouth, best sell social media aspect on the planet. I think it's been working since, I don't know, before Christ. Okay, so it works, right?
Mhm.
So when it comes to social media and being successful, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, how do you view it? What do you think are the pros and cons? And how do you adjust
Mhm.
based on how you already feel about
Mhm. I would say the way I approach social media is definitely in seasons. So I'll go in a season of, let's call it 100 posts, and then I'll come back out, reassess, and then I'll go in, and then I'll come back out. And I think for me, if you have the deep understanding that, hey, this is strictly an investment and I'm going to continue with this no matter what for years and years and years until, and regardless of when that until is, it pays off, cool. Take that approach. Again, I think we all need to find our unique approach for sustainability. And if that, for me, for example, looks like big season and then dip, big season and then dip, or someone's like daily, 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 whatever one you want to do is completely fine. You just have to make sure that it's sustainable for you and you don't burn out. Now, to me, I'm kind of in a phase of, that's not giving me the immediate payoff that I want, right? I want more clients. And so I took a little bit more one-to-one approach, finding clients, and then make sure that I do an amazing job with them so then they start to refer people. So that's the mechanism that I've chosen right now after testing, hey, social media, go hard for 100 posts, where go hard for another 100, and it didn't pay off the way I wanted to. That's totally okay. Some people it will. Some people want to continue with it for years and years and years. I'm almost agnostic to the approach. I'm just like, is this one that I want to try right now, and is it giving me the success I claim I'm after? If not, cool. Switch gears and give something else a go for a bit. So yeah, it doesn't matter to me. Just find a way that you are willing to put in the work and continue with it until you find a different approach that might be better.
it? Right. And social media changes all the time.
100%.
There's always an app, there's always a new algorithm, there's always a new way to promote yourself and be successful. Are you doing reels? Are you doing posts? Are you putting it in your story? Are you
Hmm.
small video segments? Are you doing stills? What are you doing? I want to know. And at the same time, people have the memory span of a kidney bean, right? Like
Right, right.
they see it and they forget it. So you also have to be a very good storyteller when you're coming to social media. And even if you are a good storyteller, I tell people this, like social media was my first job out of college and
Hmm.
there are ups and downs. Social media is seasonality. Okay.
Yeah.
Also depends on what market you're in, right? Like I worked in oil and energy, rolling my eyes because it was that boring. But it changed depending on what the season was. Some people care
Hmm.
about things during a different time of the year. Like, okay, I own a vegan bakery, right? January, I don't do markets in January because number one, it's cold and I'm not going outside. It's
Right.
And number two, it's right after Christmas. People don't want to spend money. So guess what I'm not doing in January? I'm not posting
Hmm.
3, 4, 5 times a week on social media
Hmm.
because it's exhausting for me. I'm already burnt out because October through December, through Christmas, Halloween, Thanksgiving, I'm baking all the time. So guess what? I have to send email campaigns. I have to be at markets and pushing out and slinging cookies, right? But
Hmm.
in January, people want to focus on what? Their health, their spending, their New Year's resolutions, even
Uh-huh.
though I know 85% of them are not going to meet it. But guess what I'm
Right.
going to do? Be in their face about buying some banana bread and some cookies because that is irrelevant to them.
Right.
So I told myself in January I would post once a week and do a check in. So I
Hmm.
really make like a 30 to 45-second video. I do a check in telling people, how are you doing? I might say something personal about me. I might say a cool fact. I might say, hey, you can look forward to this in February or March, but I'm not vending. And I have already in my mind that sales are not going to be what they usually are. They're going to drop by 80 to 90.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm okay with that because like
Because it's not a
squirrel,
you thing. It's
not a
like
big
a
thing.
greater thing. Yeah, exactly.
Thing. Like a squirrel, like an ant, you prepare in the winter and you stack up. That way, when it's time for you to hibernate, you're fine, right? And even in February, so January and February for me are also like my branding and marketing season. I'm thinking about, let me refresh my website. What new products do I want to bake going into the
Hmm.
year? Like I'm changing my habits around my business to be successful in 2025. But I
Hmm.
know in March 1st, I'm back at markets, right? I'll probably do one or two in February for Black History Month for the culture.
Hmm.
Fine.
Hmm.
But beyond that, I would do markets Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm not doing 12, 13 markets. I'm not doing that. I'm probably going to do two. But in March, I'll be back. The weather's good.
Hmm.
Guess what? People have already failed their New Year's resolutions. They said, I'm going to go ahead and give you some cookies now. Their habits have changed and so have mine. But you have to have seasonality. So I change my marketing and social media based on my audience, whether it's current
Hmm.
or new customers, because there are people in everybody's lives that they haven't met yet. There are people who you're going to meet that are going to be at your wedding. There are people that you're going to meet that are going to be in your friend group. There are people you're going to meet who are going to make you spend more or less money. There are people you're going to meet that are going to make you form good or bad habits. But I think everything habits can be seasonal. Social media is seasonal. Everything's seasonal. Marketing changes.
Hmm.
Everything changes. So, like you said, do what works for you when it comes to marketing,
Yeah.
when it comes to social media. Now, obviously, if you're the CEO of Apple, that's going to look different for you. But even then, you have to do what works for you because
Right.
things change. Everything's not going to be hot at the current moment. So I just wanted your spill on that and kind of how you measured social media when you.
Yeah.
So
Here's one, maybe a little different take too, at least for me, because my business is centered around personal development, self improvement, like people wanting to change. So some people think, ooh, January must be your time. But I literally see it the exact opposite. I'm like, no, it's so noisy in January. So many people falsely want to or claim they want to change. There's never more of a confusion of who's actually willing and wanting to make the change, right? So once those people fall off in January, February, whatever it is, that is where I started to go, okay, now I can see the signal a little bit easier because these people want it not just at the arbitrary, oh, it's a new year, it's a fresh slate. It's like, no, these people want it at a random time because of something else. So I love finding people in the transition moments of their life, new job, move places, just broke up with someone. It's like, where are you ready to make some changes? That's who I love working with.
I love that. I agree. And I think January 1st is the worst time. You're exactly you were December 31st. Please
Yeah.
change. Do not lie to yourself. Like
Yeah.
you have to start when it's hard. You can't, okay, it's January 1st. Okay, good. And I've been seeing posts on social media that say, well, January was technically still 2024. I had a lot to deal with. So really February 1st is when I start my new year. No, it's just it doesn't
Yeah.
like
Right.
that's why again people are caught up on dates and trends. Nobody
Hmm.
cares what day it is. Nobody cares what
Hmm.
trend it is. If you are not going in the gym in November, you probably aren't going in January. And even if you go in January, great. The gym's going to be empty by mid-February, so I can have my elliptical back. So I'm
Hmm.
actually so happy that you didn't stick with your goals. So I mean, I want everybody to win, but the idea is it can't be around a facade, a mirage.
Right.
It has to be something like you literally want to be better. You want to be better with your finances. You want to get in the gym, but you have to change your habits. But you have to want to change your habits. It can't be
Hmm.
because you saw a social
Hmm.
media post and your favorite workout person has an 8 pack, or oh my god, I want to start a business. Look at Martha Stewart's. You're not Martha Stewart's. You're yourself, right? So I think people need to focus on their goals and their habits. But people try to intertwine other people's habits with who they want to be. And
Hmm.
I have a lot of people I look up to. I like to read. I like to listen to podcasts. I like to go on YouTube and watch people. The only reason I know how to use technology on my podcast, the only reason that I'm growing and getting better is because I'm looking what other people are doing that are
For
doing better
sure.
than me. You have to look at other people, but you can't make your success based off their habits. You can
Hmm.
utilize their habits to be successful,
You
but you
can try
can't.
them out. Yeah,
Exactly.
you give them a go, but it's all an experiment. It's like what works with you for this season of your life. That's all it is.
That's all it is. And back to what we talked about in the beginning, putting that energy in a frame. That is what you have to do. And Chris, so before we take questions for from the audience and everything, I have
Hmm.
one last question for you. So, someone that is trying to start the business that you have, not if it's habit forming, but just personal development,
Hmm.
helping people, having an impactful business, what is the one piece of advice you would give that person if they wanted to get into something within this realm?
And this person hasn't taken the leap. Let's say it's something they've wanted to do.
Right, it's in their stomach,
Okay.
it's boiling. They want it's something they feel like they really want to do, and they meet
Hmm.
and they're like, "Oh, that's super dope." Like, I think I have that too. Or, "Oh, Shelby has a podcast." What Chris helps people with habits, like,
Hmm.
I want to do something that is mentally and, you know,
Yeah.
physically impactful on somebody's life.
Okay. The answer that's coming to mind is figure out how to become okay with both. And what I mean by both is being able to detach your identity and your who you are from the thing that you're doing, even though I know it sounds weird, paradoxical, because you're so passionate about this thing that it is you, it's part of you. But I've found there needs to be at least a partial separation, because otherwise it's too scary and you never actually take the plunge. So the more you can dissociate from the thing you're doing, even though I know it's core to who you are, hopefully it is, at least that's the only thing worth pursuing, in my opinion. But being able to have that kind of both approach of, I feel entirely connected to this, but also it doesn't matter if it doesn't work, because that lowers that barrier to entry and actually allows you to get going. More practically, I would say start small, start as small as you need to be consistent, and identify or evaluate your progress based on, have you done the thing that you set out to in that micro moment, not have you earned the outcome that you want 10 years down the road. Because if you always do that, that's going to be 10 years of crap, right? But if
Right.
you bring it down to, I can be successful today in this moment, is going to be what leads you to that longer term success.
Start as small as you need to be consistent. I really like that. And I think that's at the core of what habit forming is, what mental wellness, financial wellness is,
Hmm.
like starting small, small incremental changes, being consistent. Okay, and I have one more thing. So I'm gonna type in definition of habit. What is it? I just want to. Okay, so it says a habit is two different things: a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. Number two, a long, loose garment worn by a member of a religious order. Clearly, you're focused on number one, which is a
But there's some cool stuff about number two, if you will indulge me. Okay,
tell
so the way I define habit is, it is an automatic interaction between you and your context. So the way I really see it is like your cue or your context prompts this action. So it really is this interaction between things, right? You have associations with this thing or with your mouse or whatever it is that will put you kind of in a behavioral groove, more likely to do that thing, right? And so a habit, being a garment or a thing we wear, is such a cool view from my point, because I see clothes, I see your hair, I see the books in the back. Like, these are all layers of our context that are influencing what we want to do. So
right.
looking at a habit as something you wear is such a cool idea to me. And I know, like, most people don't have never thought of that, but when I first saw that, I was like, yes, that is it. Habits are the things around us and our interactions with them. It is not just us. That's the willpower only approach. Habit is the relationship between you and your environment. And that I love that frame for it.
Love that. A habit is your relationship between you and your environment. So look at who you are, look at your environment, and they'll tell you what your habits are, maybe what they need to be, right? But
Hmm.
we all wear our habits, right? And you're right, we all do identify with them. I think that's a really cool way. I didn't think about that when I saw the definition. So, Chris, tell people Where can they find you? Tell me your social media handles. Where can people find you at? Where should they be looking?
People, yes, hack that habit, HACK, like break it down like a computer hacker, break it down. That, I think you know that, and then habit spelled normally. Hack that habit. Go to my website and reach out to me there. You can hit me up on socials. It might just be a while until I respond.
It might be a minute till you respond. Okay, listen.
Yes.
So we have a few minutes. Does anybody on the chat have any questions for Chris before we wrap up? If you do, drop it in the chat. Chris, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for
I had
having me.
fun. This is great. I think a lot of times people don't talk about habits. They don't talk about what that looks like for them. They don't have those conversations with their friends and family. So I really wanted people going into the new year. All right, this is the first day of February. So since everybody wants to start in February,
The real new year.
right, the real new year, January, I felt like a great way to kick it off was around having the habits you need. Because if you don't have the right habits, your year is going to look the same as last year. It's definitely gonna look really badly. Okay, we have a question for both of you. Okay, what's a habit that has had a positive spillover effect / impact on your entrepreneurial journey? Okay, who should go first, Chris?
I mean, I can take it.
Okay.
It's very simple, but mine is, it's kind of a combination, but I'll pick one. I'm going to do it. Mine is exercising, and specifically cardio, like running. It's this monotonous movement that both stills my mind, gets my brain working. So it's like one of the, I wake up, go to the bathroom, stretch, and I'm on my run. And that sets the tone for my day. It puts my brain exactly where I want it to be. It reminds me that the random little emotional things don't actually matter. It fades away. It's a fake feeling. It's like, nope, not real. And I feel at my most powerful the hour or two after I finish that run.
Everybody get to the gym. Look, it's empty now. Everybody who didn't meet their goals in January, they're not there anymore. People with the new workout clothes and the fresh tennis shoes with no mud on them, they're gone. So get to the gym. That was great. I do agree. As somebody who loves fitness, it relaxes me, it resets me, it makes me feel like I can go and accomplish anything because I did it for me. And so for me personally, my effective impact for my entrepreneurial journey, that's the habit, is one word: routine. I am very, very specific about my routine. Chris, if you ask any of my friends or my mom and dad who are in the chat, do not interrupt me in the morning. I don't like talking before 10:30. My routine: coffee, okay, and gym. I please don't, even if I'm on vacation, Chris, ask any of my friends. You can have the morning, you can have the room to yourself. You're not going to see me because I'm going to go to the gym and then get coffee after. So routine is very important to me as an entrepreneur. Like my routine around how I do my business. And I have a dry erase board calendar on my fridge. I have my planner. Like the things in my life that are just routine are very important to me. Like once my routine is off, my day is off, my peace is off. And your partner, your family, your friends, they all have to be understanding of that because my routine is how I find joy. My routine is how I'm successful. My routine is how I can do my side hustle. My routine is just who I am. So routine for me is super, super important. Let's see.
Couldn't agree more.
Did we have another question that I missed? Okay, let's see.
We do.
So Anthony has a question for you. I don't know. So first of all, I'll ask you, Chris, have you even read this book? If not, then you can just answer the question.
I want to say I read it, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I want to say it is. I read that, it's got to be like 8 years at this point, so I don't even remember what these 7 habits are. Anthony, if you want to write some of those specific ones out, or maybe you're asking if I practice them in the same way that the author suggests doing their habits. I'm not sure of being proactive. I love to be proactive. Actually, so what if you type more, I'll talk on proactivity for a bit. I look at my exercise and even, meditation and the work that I do. I look at that as solving problems that haven't happened yet. It is not a reactive thing I do because I'm feeling emotionally overwhelmed or because I don't feel like I feel anxious. I go on a run. No, that's backwards. Maybe you need to start there and that's fine because that solves your problem in the moment. But the way I see it is like, I'm doing these things proactively, ongoingly before the other stuff happens. So it's almost like the emotional thing that could have happened, that could have gutted me before going on the run. If I've gone on the run, it's like, think, just bounces off because it's not a real thing. I'm in such a more powerful position that it won't affect me anywhere near as much. So I love being proactive as much
So
as I
you're just
can.
having like solution oriented thinking, like your mindset is already like that. So you already have the idea in your mind that I'm going to be proactive. And like this other one, again with the end in mind, you already knew that you wanted to
Hmm.
feature run before you started it, right? That was already your goal, right?
Yeah, lay out your clothes the night before. It's like you've already begun. The dominoes are already going. You started it. You go to bed. It's like boom, you're already in motion, right?
I love that. So I do that with my gym clothes.
Yeah.
Because I know when I wake up, I'm looking straight at my TV and my gym clothes are underneath on the bench. I'm like, okay, girl, you got to go to the gym. You got to be
Hmm.
proactive. You got to begin with the end in mind because your clothes are already there. So you got to
Hmm.
do it. So those
Hmm.
were great questions. I have not read that book. I'm familiar with the book, but I've never read it. But definitely going to put it on my list. Okay, do we have any questions from anyone else? Chris, did you want to add anything? Did you want to ask me anything before we wrap up?
Um, I mean, one, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. I am so happy we did this, and I can't wait to actually hang out in Toronto when you come.
Can't wait.
I think the one thing I'm most curious about is when it comes to your business, what would you say is the thing that you overcame that was like maybe difficult for you that once you figured it out, whether it was a daily process or something, once you figured it out, it kind of unlocked the next step. Is there something like that that comes to mind in the business realm for you?
Yeah, I think podcast and my bakery business, I think the number one thing that has helped me be okay and be successful is my number one word, resetting. You have to be
Mm,
okay with hitting reset. I can have a bad day, I can have a good day. Somebody can make me mad on the elevator. I might be at a bakery event and my goal is to always sell out. I love being able to post that empty table with no more baked goods. That's super important to me. But sometimes you have to reset. Sometimes I have to realize, like, okay, like people don't want red velvet cookies this weekend. Maybe that's not hot. I got to try a different item next time. You have to have a reset mentality. You have to
mm,
reset for yourself as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a side hustle, as a person. So I have became okay with resetting in my life. And that took a very long time. I'm a person who likes having control. I'm a person who likes having
mhm,
my way. I'm an only child. I want things to go accordingly to how I think they should go. But that is not the case. Whether it was from job layoffs or moving to a new city or even starting a business, uh, making money, losing money, you have to have a reset mentality. If you're not okay with resetting and
mm,
refreshing and the idea that you might have to start over or pivot or redo your entire website, my podcast was not a financial wellness, mental wellness podcast when I started.
yeah.
It was a podcast about helping people that bake turn it into a lucrative income, right? And but
Mhm,
I realized what I was talking about more than anything on this bakery podcast was financial wellness and mental wellness. I was like, you have to be this kind of person to be a good baker. You have to be this kind of person to understand money. And I'm like, what I really want to help people do is just be successful. I think everybody has
mhm,
a passion they can turn into money, but you have to be okay at resetting. You have to be okay with changing things and starting completely over. So resetting is the only reason that I'm so okay with everything that has happened in my life, good and bad. So
love it.
I have a reset mindset. Even if I don't want to do it, I just
Mhm,
reset it. I just hit that
mhm,
button and I might disappear. I might put my phone on D&D. I might go to the gym for 2 hours, but I believe in resetting in any aspect. It's never too late to start over. Never too late to
wonderful.
reset. So
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
that's my take for the day, everyone. If we don't have any more questions, thank you everybody for hopping in the chat. Thank you, Chris. Shout out to Toronto. Shout out to Irvine, California, where you're from. Shout out to Houston, Texas. Shout out to Austin. Shout out to everybody who was on the chat today. I'm your host, Shelbie Morgan of the Hustle, Budget, and Glow podcast. Thank you, everybody. Peace out. You guys can go ahead and log off. I'm going to wrap up with Chris. It has been so fun. I've had a great time. This is going to be live for you to listen to from the recording standpoint on Tuesday because the podcast comes out every other Tuesday at 8 a.m. So that would be next Tuesday. So tell your families and friends that couldn't join. They can hear the recording part live next Tuesday. Same for the video if they want to rewatch it. Then edit it, and that'll be live on Tuesday too. But thank you everyone so much. Y'all can hop off. I appreciate it. I'm gonna go ahead and end this chat for everyone that's on here live. It has been fun. It has been a blast. And thank you everybody.